stagecoach holdup, a corrupt uncle, and competing freight haulers. Welcome everyone. This week we're going back to 1948 for an American Western film called Albuquerque, starring Randolph Scott, Barbara Britton, George Gabby Hayes, and Catherine Craig. And this is directed by Ray Onrait. I hope you enjoy this week's story. It begins on a stagecoach headed for Albuquerque. Holding the reins is Juke, played by George Gabby Hayes, and among the passengers are Cole Armand, played by Randolph Scott, Celia Wallace, played by Catherine Craig, and young Myrtle heading home to her father. Cole has been recruited by his corrupt uncle John Armand to inherit his freight hauling empire. 5 bandits soon interfere as they hold up the stagecoach. A passenger is shot for his collections, and Celia is robbed of her $10,000, money that was for her brother Ted's business. The shooting scares the horses, allowing Cole to escape and chase down the stagecoach with little Myrtle on board. Cole stops the runaway horses and rescues little Myrtle. Heading back, they pick up Celia and the others. Arriving at the Albuquerque Stage Depot, they inform Sheriff Linton of the shooting and that the stagecoach has been robbed. Celia is grateful until she learns John Armand is Cole's uncle, a ruthless freight line owner who stops at nothing to put competitors Celia and her brother Ted out of business. Cole greets his uncle, who tells him he's stepping into a manager's job as soon as he learns the ropes, as John is getting old and tired. An excited Cole heads over to the saloon and has a drink with Juke when they see men leaving town and hear a familiar voice coming from the gambling table. Confronting the henchman, Cole concludes that his uncle was behind the stagecoach robbery, staged as a financial setback to his competitors Celia and Ted. Cole confronts his uncle and retrieves Celia's $10,000 to her and her brother, and wishes to become a junior partner, and the Wallace and Armand Freighting Company opens. Showing they mean business, the newly formed partners begin plans over dinner, such as the dangerous half-high mine. An upset uncle, needing an informant on the inside, hires a woman, Letty Tyler, played by Barbara Britton, to spy on his adversaries. Sounds like trouble. So, is another robbery staged to get Letty on the inside? Does a mine mysteriously blow up and Ted injured in a shooting? Or is a determined Cole Armand framed for arson and jailed? Released February 20th, 1948, our film is based on the 1939 novel Dead Freight for Paiute by popular Western writer Luke Short. Pine Thomas Productions specialized in low-budget films, but had recently formed a separate company, Clarion. To make one expensive film a year, Albuquerque was to be its first. The film was a success at the box office, earning almost $2 million, and the New York Times called it a stirring tale. Yes, it is. And I'll put up the links to a couple other great westerns that were stirring tales from my channel. Kansas Pacific from 1953 and The Sons of Katie Elder from 1965. Please click the links below. And our trivia question this week: did someone involved in this film get paid big money for doing their own stunt? Did someone involved in this film get paid big money for doing their own stunt? So a little more history and the answer to our trivia question coming up next. The story in our film is centered on the freight hauling industry of the 1800s, making freight hauling the subject of this week's history. So, during the era of the Western expansion, one of the least appreciated but important occupations was moving freight. Freight hauling provided everything from food to machinery, household goods, and needed equipment for the rancher, farmer, and storekeeper. In the West, steamboats and the steady growth of railroads during the 1840s, well into the turn of the century, provided a huge slice of the freight business. However, those services generally reached cities and large towns, offloaded, and needed to be transported. The early days of the West up to 1900, there were large freight companies and plenty of independent operators who saw a need to earn a living transporting goods. Remy Nadeau was known as the king of the desert freighters, and his company moved goods from Los Angeles to Salt Lake City and Virginia City. During the California Gold Rush, mining camps were often so remote and difficult to reach that packed trains of mules carried supplies by individuals. By the 1850s, some trails were sufficient to be attempted by wagons. with many freight companies supplying camps via the use of over 500 mules and horses capable of hitching to 40 or more wagons. Depending on the team of animals who drove the freight wagons, they were called mule skinners or bull whackers. Going days without seeing another human, a bath, or decent food, drivers would sleep in the open or under wagons. The ore wagons, having no place to sit, the freighter rode on the last animal that was in harness or yoke. Life on the trail wasn't easy. However, the pay of around $70 to $80 a month for experienced hand was above common laborers or miners, whose average was $2 to $3.50 a day. A typical charge to haul freight might be $8 to $10 per 100 pounds, but also dependent on distance, dangers, and difficulties. Large freight wagons gradually fell victim to trucks, better and more roads, and an increase in rail lines as service to smaller towns lessened the need for many of the big wagons. Smaller wagons still worked the farms and delivering goods, but as the road systems improved and reached more isolated areas, the large freighters became less needed. Interesting. And the answer to our trivia question this week: did someone involved in this film get paid big money for doing their own stunt? Yes. And it was American actor Dan White who played Henchman Jackson in our film. During the escape scene where Dan's character falls from his rearing horse and is killed by Lon Chaney and the crooked sheriff, the filming would not permit the use of his stunt double due to the closeness of the camera. Dan did the entire sequence, but before shooting, he was insured for $50,000. The studio also paid him an extra $1,000 for that scene, which was the highest price ever paid an actor for a major stunt. Dan White was well known for appearing in westerns, claiming to have made about 300 films and 150 television cameos during his years in Hollywood. Amazing. I hope everyone clicks like and subscribe and tunes back in next week.